Hi. I won't say hi in Arabic because hi in Arabic means peace, and there is no peace. I don't know where to put my cheerful, goofy personality during a genocide. Today, I'd like to share another piece of psychoeducation based on a news item I saw from Palestine that can help us better understand the genocide through the metaphor of abuse in a family system. In family systems theory, there's an idea called homeostasis, which refers to a family's tendency toward balance and stability and maintaining the status quo, even if that status quo isn't necessarily ideal. A family is naturally going to tend toward maintaining balance and not shaking things up too much. So, if there's a certain tendency in terms of authority or structure in the family, different roles that different people in the family play, um, people usually seek, without even realizing it consciously, to preserve that system. And this can be beneficial and it can be harmful. The benefit to preserving the family structure as it is would be to expend less energy to keep the system functioning because change is usually inherently turbulent. However, when a system is dysfunctional, preserving it does not serve anyone. The reason I'm talking about family systems theory today is because it can definitely be applied to a global scale when you look at geopolitics, and lessons can be learned. And today I'd like to point to the lesson of the phenomenon where there's an abusive family member who everyone knows they have to watch out for. Maybe this person has raging mood swings, and you don't want to get on his bad side. So everyone in the family knows, don't disturb this guy. Do whatever he says. Keep your head down, because if you do anything to rock the boat too much, everyone's going to have a bad time. And because the abuser is known to be unreasonable and known to be dangerous, and everyone understands that he cannot be reasoned with, rather than trying to confront the abuser or do something about the abuse directly, which would take more energy and disrupt the homeostasis of the family the most, what often you will find family members in these abusive, toxic, dysfunctional systems doing instead is um, they actually punish anyone in the family who tries to put an end to the abuse. This might sound bizarre, but it's very common, unfortunately. And really, the reason it happens is because they're using short-term thinking of, like, we know that any confrontation will be very turbulent and consequential, so we want to discourage that, and we're not going to try to reason with the unreasonable one, the abuser. So we're going to try to reason with the reasonable people, by shaming them if they stand up against the abuse. Like, keep your head down. Why are you questioning authority? And you can imagine a good example of this, that maybe there's a child who's more rebellious. This child might see the abuse and really want to stand up against it. And the rest of the family might tell this child, settle down. You're going to get us all killed. You're going to, shame on you for rocking the boat all of the time. We need you to shut up because we're all going to be in a big mess if you don't stop. And so this child becomes the scapegoat. It's all this child's fault. If this child was not so rebellious, then dad would not be so angry all the time. And then we'd have a more peaceful balance in our family life. So everyone starts resenting the very person who is seeking to fight back against the injustice. And unfortunately, as a result of that, the most willing person in the family system to enforce justice is actually then seen or misperceived or mischaracterized as the source of the injustice. So you can kind of see how this plays out in a family, right? Where, like, now you have the golden child. This is a term that's commonly used in family systems theory by family therapists, where the golden child is the one who plays by the rules and they can do no wrong. And they are like someone who's basically profiting from the system of abuse. by going along with it and reinforcing it. Anything that can be done to maintain the abusive family system will be rewarded, and anything that disrupts the abusive family system is seen as tearing the family apart, even though that disruption should be seen as a good thing objectively because the system needs to be disrupted. It's abusive. Um, this can also look like the narcissist in a family having what psychologists like to call flying monkeys doing their dirty work, where let's say if there's like an abusive father, and then there's a more neglectful mother who's really tired, and she sees the father abusing the children. Maybe he also abuses her, and she doesn't know what to do, and she might tell her kids, like, just go along with him, just do what he says, like, stop making a big fuss. And so she's really enforcing his authority with her limited authority, rather than using her power to try to help the people weaker than her in the family system, who are the children. And it's a difficult situation for everyone to be in, but until a willingness is gathered by everyone in the family to confront the actual source of the problem, which is the abuser who's making everyone's lives miserable, um, everyone else is going to end up turning into, it's really sad to see, but everyone's gonna, like, the abuse, if unaddressed, is going to affect everyone in the family in different heartbreaking ways. And you kind of feel bad for all of them, maybe except the main abuser, who's like bringing all of this harm to his family. And I'm using like the masculine pronoun, but of course there can be women abusers in families. This happens very often as well, unfortunately. So now that we've kind of thought a little bit about this common situation in toxic family systems, how does this apply to global politics? Well, when there's a less rational party, let's say a genocidal entity that is bombing dozens and scores of people per day, largely children, starving an entire population, ethnically cleansing the land, and literally no one who has an ounce of power on the world stage is doing anything to stop them. And worse than that, everyone is reinforcing them at every turn and silencing anyone who is trying to stop them. Well, no, that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? And the reason I wanted to make this video is really because of a statement made by Palestinian so-called president Mahmoud Abbas yesterday, where he said, and I quote, "Every day there are hundreds of deaths. Why? They don't want to hand over the American hostage. You sons of B-words, hand over what you have and get us out of this. Don't give Israel an excuse. Don't give them an excuse." End quote. Okay, let's break this one down. So, first of all, pathetic, right? What an obvious Western pawn. When he admits himself that hundreds of people are being killed, every day, killed and injured, daily basis, Palestinian civilians, yet he uses the passive voice. There's this like mysterious entity that's killing them, right? Like, what do you mean they are being killed? By who? Why are they dead? They are directly dead every single day because of the daily decisions of Israel. Israeli airstrikes funded by American taxpayers are the reason for the daily massacres. They are the direct cause. You can do all the analyzing you want about cause and effect, but the direct, explicit, physical, real world reason for the daily massacres, the physical genocide, all your political analysis aside, is Israel. Israel is murdering physically with its own hands Israeli troops by Israeli orders, and the Western media is funding it. The Western people are funding it without their knowledge due to the manufactured consent for genocide from the Western media because of the way they are covering this genocide or failing to do so. So this is why we see this. It's really gaslighting on a massive scale, where you see footage of an Israeli airstrike landing on a bunch of tents, and it blows up and a bunch of civilians are murdered. So, Israeli weapon from the United States being dropped by an Israeli following Israeli orders upon a group of Palestinian civilians. You see a bunch of children in body bags as a result. And then you scroll down to the comments section, and all the commenters are like, "Oh, shame on the Palestinians for causing their own genocide. Shame on these Muslim terrorists. You only have yourselves to blame." Like, what do you mean? This you saw with your own two eyes, Israel dropping the bomb. And they're like, yeah, but we wouldn't have had to do it if not for the Palestinians resisting the occupation. So, by these commenters' logic, daring to try to escape the concentration camp you were born into on your own land, or daring to criticize or defend yourself and your loved ones against the entity that steals your home and murders your family, retroactively justifies their land theft and ethnic cleansing of your people. Like, for anyone who still supports Israel, they just have this perfect scapegoat in place. They don't even have to think about an excuse for their war crimes. They can just say the word terrorist and everything is justified. Oh, we murdered those Palestinian medics to fight terrorism, so it's totally justified that we bombed that hospital. We targeted those journalists to fight terrorism, so it's totally justified that we burned them alive in their tents. That's why we had to shoot up that school. We thought there might be some terrorists in there. Oh, those children we murdered? They could become future terrorists. You're welcome for doing our duty as the only democracy in the Middle East. They can justify anything retroactively by saying that. And if you're okay with it, then you're okay with genocide. And it's so see-through. The reasoning is paper thin. It's maddening and it's familiar. So now, just like the word anti-Semite, the word terrorist has lost all meaning. And because the war criminals are the ones in power, they are never going to hold themselves accountable, and they will never be asked to prove that there is actual terrorism anywhere anytime they want to commit their war crimes. Anytime they want to drop a bomb somewhere, they can just claim that there's a terrorist there. What does terrorism mean when the people who are flinging that word around are the ones murdering women and children on a daily basis? In other words, who's the real terrorist here? The Israeli army is only a legitimate authority because Israel says so. And Israel is only a legitimate state because the Western Empire says so. But the people who are colonized, the Palestinian people whose land has been stolen, do not agree. They do not recognize that legitimacy, just as the Western world does not recognize the legitimacy of the Palestinian state. So now the question becomes, who gets to decide what's legitimate? Is it the people with the most power? Those who have the most wealth to control the narrative and monopolize it and censor anyone they disagree with? Or is it the people who live on the land, the vulnerable, the ones experiencing the military occupation? Like, if you claim that Israel has the right to defend itself, which literally under international law, according to the International Court of Justice, it does not. The occupying power does not have the right to defend itself on against the people whose land it has illegally seized. The people actually have, under international law, the legal right to fight back against the occupying power. And the International Court of Justice has actually ruled that Israel, as the illegally occupying power, is legally obligated to withdraw from occupied Palestine. Um, Israel's apartheid system is illegal. Israel's military occupation and siege is illegal under international law. Israel has been found to be committing war crimes and crimes against humanity, and all of these atrocities have been well documented. Yet, if you are someone who claims that Israel has the right to defend itself, then that must mean you believe Israel has agency. So, how can you blame anyone other than the entity with agency when it commits atrocities? Another point, just side note, um, people who say Israel has the right to exist and it's anti Semitic to claim otherwise. No state has the right to exist. That's states, in theory, exist to serve their people and not the other way around. That we have a moral obligation to fight back against any entity that is founded on a system of racial supremacy, which Israel by definition is. So, back to President Mahmoud Abbas, when he says these people are, these Palestinians are being killed every day and don't give Israel an excuse to attack us, it's really quite pathetic that he is implying that Israel would be is reasonable. Like they would not attack if we would act right. And this brings us to the second really obvious lie, where the first lie is a lie of omission, where he fails to recognize the cause of the abuse, which is the primary abuser in the toxic family system, in this case, Israel. Um, but now he is uh, claiming that if the so-called rebellious child in the toxic family system were to just fall in line and be obedient, he would not be beaten. But we already know this isn't true because he blames the Palestinians for the genocide because of October 7. And for that logic to follow, then he'd have to disregard the 7 decades of extreme oppression that preceded October 7. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And the worst part of this lie is that literally every single day I wake up and check the news, I see a new report of the ceasefire negotiations where the Palestinians are putting forth an offer of exchanging the remaining Israeli hostages for all or at least some of the 10,000 plus Palestinian hostages in order to put an end to the genocide. And every single time, the Israelis refuse it. This is like cataloged, it's documented. And so it's a lie. It's like the thing he's demanding, where he's saying, if you would just fall in line, if you would just give back the hostages, this wouldn't happen to us. So he's basically assuming that we cannot change the abuser's behavior, Israel. Therefore, I'm not even going to try to blame them, even though they're the ones causing the abuse. I'm not going to call them sons of B words. I'm going to start yelling at anyone who dares stand up against the abuser. And so in this case, he's saying, stop holding out, start cooperating. You're the one who's shaking up the family system by resisting and daring to fight back against the abuser. This is really unfair because the Palestinians are literally constantly making new ceasefire offers, and they are not the ones who broke the ceasefire. They carried out the first phase of the ceasefire in full. This is an objective fact. They sought to proceed with the second phase of the ceasefire. Israel violated the first phase of the ceasefire multiple times. This is demonstrably the case. It's been covered in depth through like every international human rights organization and all of the media organizations who are not directly under the thumb of the Zionist colonizer Western Empire. So the second phase of the ceasefire did not proceed, and Israel violated the ceasefire repeatedly while it was in place. And then Israel was the one to break the ceasefire. And then every time that the Palestinian people sought to meet Israel's demands, Israel made it very clear, we want genocide. We want ethnic cleansing. Currently, there are 58 Israeli soldiers being held by the Palestinians in Gaza, and there are upwards of 10,000 Palestinians being held in Israeli prisons. you might have seen from all of the exchange videos that Palestinians being released by Israel are often released directly into hospitals because of all the torture they endure while they're in there. And on the other hand, the Israelis released come out looking surprisingly healthy considering they've been in a genocide bombarded by their own military. Um, so this Mahmoud Abbas is basically saying you need to give back the hostages. It's your fault that Israel is attacking us, thereby providing a justification for Israel to attack. Like he's basically implying that they do have an excuse. He's blaming the victims of the genocide for the genocide by saying, you need to give up these hostages, disregarding the fact that the Palestinian people are trying to give up the hostages and Israel is literally refusing to accept them. Why do you think the Israeli public is constantly protesting against its own government? Because they can tell that their lives are expendable and that the lie of Jewish safety in being exclusive to Israel or being a big promise of this Zionist paradise of Israel is like this illusion is breaking, right? It's very clear that the Jewish people of Israel, their lives are very expendable to the Zionist government. The Zionist government doesn't care about its people, it cares about its entity, preserving its own state, which is what most states seek to do, preserve their own power. Doesn't matter how the people suffer. Anything to maintain their power, they'll do that. So, in summary, Mahmoud Abbas is providing justification for Israel's genocide, blaming the victims of the genocide, ignoring the fact that the demands he's requesting of the people of Palestine, they are already trying to do. And um, Israel is literally not allowing it. And like in every single report back from ceasefire negotiations, you can read that the ceasefire negotiators are really frustrated by Israel's complete lack of desire for negotiation. They only are interested in the complete surrender of Palestine, basically. Uh, give back the hostages and submit to lifelong military occupation and imprisonment and lay down your arms and let us occupy you and everything, like complete surrender is the terms of Israel. That's not a ceasefire negotiation, that's a you submit to us or else, which is what they're already doing by bombing. They're saying, submit to us or else. So what's the point of these diplomatic negotiations then? Ben Gvir the other day literally said we should bomb their aid depots, like explicitly advocating for starvation as a policy of war. And it just no one even blinks. It's just so acceptable to them that Palestinian lives are expendable. And this is what the abuser's mind looks like. So why are we not blaming the abuser? Why are we yelling at the way the abuse victims are handling the abuse? This is how we've been conditioned. Homeostasis. Maintain the status quo. Maintain the Zionist world order at all costs. Because some people are very, very privileged by it, and everyone else needs to shut up and take it. That's what they want us to believe. Guess what? To all of the children out there who, sincerely, children in abusive families who dare to stand up, your voices are beautiful. You are the reason for all that is good in the world. Like, by the grace of God, you have had the courage to face monsters in your own home. And even if it made you unpopular, and even if it made you lonely, and even if it was really scary, you had the courage to do that. And to stand up for what's right and to not care to maintain the status quo. You could have tried to seek favor with the corrupt power system. You could have competed for the role of golden child, but you didn't. You don't want to be golden child, Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. You don't want to be the ones who are the pawns of the empire, who have personal profit under the system from the person who hates you, while at the direct expense of your most vulnerable people, pregnant women and elderly people, and farmers from rural villages in Palestine. And when I am speaking for literally like individuals all over the world living in abusive families, and I am speaking for oppressed populations. So I am speaking on every scale. This is why I became a therapist. I care about oppression wherever I find it. We should all care about oppression wherever we find it, on small scale and on large scale. And isn't it interesting the way it scales so neatly? Like the same principles truly do apply. I say this just to clarify that I'm not merely speaking metaphorically. Literally, children in abusive family systems, I'm rooting for you. You know, even when you're an adult and you've outgrown the family system, but the trauma of it still impacts you. No matter where you are in the world or who you are, I'm rooting for you. And any oppressed population who is as if a child in an abusive global system, I am rooting for you. And my videos center around Palestine because I'm more informed about Palestine with my personal life experience, and because I do believe that every oppression does trace back to the Zionist world order. But I am rooting for the people, the beautiful people of Yemen and Sudan and Kashmir. And there's so many events I always want to talk about, but um, there's I literally delete so much footage where I just start every video by spending like half an hour listing war crimes just from today, and then I'm like, this can't be the video. I can't just always do that. I need to get to my point. But I'm rooting for you. There's a lot of people out there who are actively, constantly rooting for you, praying for you, fighting for you. Um, and the Zionists know this, and they feel it, and they feel that shift. Um, we believe that God's promise is true, that justice is coming, and the resilience of the people who resist in the face of repression and oppression is so inspiring and so undeniable. And it's like once the genie is out of the bottle, you're not getting it back in there. Liberation is imperative. Liberation is inevitable. And in a time of sorrow, we take our joy from the fact that we are on the right side of history, willing to be defiant, and privileged to be able to fight for what is right. May Allah accept it from us and free all of the oppressed and all of the abused, whoever and wherever they are. Assalamu alaikum.